Niall, 14 years as CEO, you've just launched your final Tourism Ireland annual marketing plans. What does 2023 hold in store for us?
I think it holds in store the rebuild now of the tourism sector after a very difficult number of years. It's hard to believe we launched our marketing plans on Monday for the first time in real life in 3 years. I mean, that was significant. And as I know yourself, Owen, you draw your energy from the room.
Yeah.
And there was a phrase I used at the time, human connection is essential for emotional well-being.
Yeah.
And we can do all these Zoom calls and they're great. And the technology has been super in keeping us all well connected. And we know what's going on. But when you get into that room to talk about tourism, it's all about the people, and you can feel the energy and the pulse. And
Yeah.
I think for the year ahead, it's further recovery. We had a very good second half to the year in 2022, and as we head into this year, we know what the challenges are. We listed them all out there. I mean, there's currency fluctuations, there's economic uncertainties, cost of doing business, war in Ukraine. But really, I think the demand pipeline is looking very, very good at the moment.
Yeah.
We see some really good air connectivity prospects coming in, some of them new, some of them re-established. It's come back faster than we thought. Sentiment towards Ireland is very, very positive. All our research indicates that. And we've no control over the supply factors right now, but on the demand side, we're optimistic for 2023.
Yeah. I was in the room in the Clayton Hotel, Burlington Road on Monday, and I think you were in Belfast as well a couple of days afterwards, and the energy was really super. And one of the things you mentioned on stage was that Tourism Ireland have got an enhanced budget this year compared anyway to pre-pandemic times. How is that going to be spent? Is there new creative? Is there new sort of advertising material? And I suppose, which markets will you be focusing on?
Yeah, we have a good budget next year, in fairness. The marketing budget, which doesn't include pay and operating costs, is 78 million euros. That's significantly higher than it was in 2019. And, so all in all, when you put all the funds together, pay, operating costs, marketing, approximately 104 million as we're talking today. That's a very strong position to be in compared to other tourist boards. We'll be prioritizing our top four markets, which are the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, with activity spread throughout others as well, but they're the top four. And we have a new creative, which is terrific news. We've got some top actors from around the country. We've got Sharon Horgan from Bad Sisters, and we have the Derry Girls as well in the first instance, and we've got more to come. But we've shot new creative. It's ready to go. On the 17th of March, the campaign will launch across those top four markets. And just taking Britain as a way of an example, we'll be launching on St. Patrick's Day on Channel 4, Channel 5, video on demand, radio, digital. We'll hit about 94% of our target audience in Britain alone. And that'll be replicated across our other markets as well. So we're really optimistic that we're coming well prepared, well funded, with a good campaign.
Yeah, and you mentioned air access being strong, and sea access is also strong, and obviously that they're key aspects for an island nation such as our own. But which markets do you think hold best prospects? Because we're all a little bit worried that the British economy is going to go into the doldrums, and we're not quite sure how Europe's looking. The US still, we hope, is going to be strong. Any instinct? I mean, you talked about you do some research overseas. Which markets are looking the most positive in terms of prospects?
As we're sitting here in January, there's no question the United States is looking at a very, very positive year. The sentiment towards Ireland is exceptionally strong. Currency is in the right direction. Connectivity is really good. New routes coming in, for example, Aer Lingus from Cleveland, Dublin being the only European city with a direct flight into Cleveland. Big diaspora there, and there'll be big interest in visiting Ireland. Reconnection from the likes of Chicago into Shannon. That used to be there back around 2017, but that's terrific for the west of Ireland,
Yeah.
And I think, the one thing that we were always worried about a number of years ago, would all those new routes that Aer Lingus had put on into Seattle, San Fran, LA come back? They're all back. Which is great. And even Hartford, Connecticut is back as well. So, I mean, the map is really good from a connectivity perspective into the USA. In relation to mainland Europe, look, it's a bit of a mixed picture to some extent. But that being said, the connectivity is very good. We will have, good reach in relation to our campaigns across all our European markets. And I think the prospects are reasonably positive. In relation to Britain, it's very hard to call at the moment.
Yeah.
I think, there's definitely going to be a strong VFR market. There's still a lot of people looking to come home to visit friends and family that haven't properly reconnected yet.
Yeah.
I mean, the connectivity from Britain is always reasonably good. It'll probably be a very important market in Q1 and Q4, because as you know, over 40% of British visitors come off season. I think that's where Britain could really prove its worth this year. As we head towards the summer season, you've got big events like the Navy Notre Dame game in August, and I think the Americans are going to be a very strong player on the field this summer, so to speak. Be 40,000 coming to that game alone. So I think Britain may well prove its worth in quarter 1 and quarter 4.
Yeah, and of course you talk about the States, and the dollar is strong at the moment, and has been for a while. And if that continues, so that there's great value for Americans in Ireland. Just go back to the research element for a little bit, Niall, and maybe let's zoom in on the research in the States, which is such an important market to the island of Ireland. Is Ireland still positively thought of? Sometimes we get fixated here about the price of hotel rooms or the lack of car hire, or sort of issues, relatively mundane. I just wonder on a macro helicopter perspective, is that picked up overseas, or do Americans have a much more sort of generic positive image of Ireland?
It's a great question. And I'd say to you, I have years of having watched it all. I mean, the perception of Ireland abroad, particularly the United States, is probably far more positive than it is at home.
Yeah.
Now, that's a very generic thing. I mean, they just love the Ireland brand. And that's actually got stronger and stronger. And it's not just seen in tourism. When I talk to people in Ornua, for example, the likes of Kerrygold, people who are selling products into the United States, there's a real glow around Ireland, which is really, really positive. That we can,
and that's still the case.
No question about it. I mean, if anything, if you ask me, where is it versus 10 years ago, I say it's even stronger. Yeah. The perception of Ireland abroad is really, really positive. Now, when it comes then to things like value for money, I mean, we certainly aren't picking up signals that will really worry us, so to speak, on value for money. It's been shielded somewhat by currency. I think when we start to hear stories at home about car hire for €1,200 a week, I mean, that sort of thing is a bit ridiculous. I was on the site the other day in the middle of a radio show, and someone had said they were quoted several thousand for car hire. And actually, you can actually get SUVs at the moment in the middle of August for €750 for a week. So I think we have to keep this in perspective. There is no question, there is a shortage of cars at the moment. We have to be really honest about that. And that is a problem for the US market. I mean, they're big hires of cars. So that will be a problem for another couple of years to come. I think there's no other easy answer to it. Every European destination has the same problem. Yeah. And I think in relation to hotel rooms, I mean, look, they are consumers of five-star products, particularly castle experiences, which are more expensive. Yeah. I think what we need to be very careful of as an industry is, when your algorithms start to price the last remaining rooms at astronomical rates, that's the sort of stuff that can do reputational damage. But we did monitor it last year, Owen. We monitored international media to see if there was any pickup on those stories that we were getting in Ireland around Garth Brooks. And there was nothing that was coming up in international media that would worry us. But it's something that you wouldn't want to see continue for a long period. You can have it happen once and it will get noticed. But if it was to happen for a recurring time, it will be unhelpful, I'd say,
Yeah. And just on the sort of intangibles, things like, the Colin Farrell movie based in Achill Island and stuff, that, and, fingers crossed, that gets, a run at the Oscars shortly. That gives an enormous exposure, doesn't it, to Ireland, Irish scenery, Irish culture. And, you guys in Tourism Ireland can leverage it, but you couldn't possibly buy that coverage and that exposure, could you?
It's been phenomenal. And, for the last decade, we've been talking about the likes of Game of Thrones and Star Wars, and we got a great run and what will come after those. But it's amazing, with all the new streaming services that are out there, there's a big demand for content and a big demand for locations. And what we've been lucky with now, and where the tables have really turned, is that we're getting in at the very early stage when a film is being produced, to have the conversations with the producers and the directors to see, will they make a piece for us, a destination piece. So that Banshees video that we produced a couple of months ago, that had 10.6 million completed views. Now, yourself, you go onto a video, sometimes you switch off after half it and it's gone. Yeah. But 10.6 million completed views in markets like the United States, Great Britain, Australia. And we have another round to go now, funding on that. So we'll be putting it out into the European markets and back out in the UK and the US, just around Oscars time as well. So I think, with a movie like that, the scenery is spectacular. But the characters as well, I mean, and what they say and what they talk about. It doesn't matter what you think about the movie. This is all about, they're talking about the destination. And we've had success with that. We've had Disenchanted last year with Disney. We've got Dungeons and Dragons coming up this year as well. We had all the top Amazon executives in Ireland a number of months ago. I met them. They met the minister as well. And, the pipeline and the prospects are really good in this space. So I'm glad that Tourism Ireland is really ahead of the curve.
Yeah, great. The global greening, can we expect to see that back on St. Patrick's Day?
We decided this year that we would park global greening just this year. When you have a global energy crisis, wouldn't be the right thing to go out and ask buildings to light up, so to speak. So we will have another initiative we'll announce for St. Patrick's Day, not today. That again will make sure that we bring a strong tourism dimension to that time of the year, because it's really important, particularly in markets like the United States and Great Britain, across Europe. It reminds people of Ireland. It's a great time for booking your holiday and that. So it will still have a strong tourism dimension to it. Our new campaign does launch on St. Patrick's Day on TV as well across various markets. So that's very good. I hope we do go back to global greening, because I think it did capture the world's imagination for a decade, and we had got up to over 770 sites. There will be some that'll probably still light up because they do like to do it anyway. It's very much no one really owns this. I mean, it's called Tourism Ireland's Global Greening, but it's diaspora, it's Department of Foreign Affairs. It's a great Team Ireland thing, and hopefully we'll see it back next year.
Yeah, but it's one of the initiatives that you can duly take credit for during your term. And I mentioned, your 14 years as CEO. I think is it 21? I'm aging you now, Niall, but I think it's 21 within the Tourism Ireland senior management. And obviously, I speak on behalf of the industry to thank you for everything, your energy, your commitment, your passion. But where do you feel Irish tourism is at the moment? Because over those couple of decades that you've been within tourism, you've seen it all. You've seen the financial crash. You probably came in just after 9/11. The ash cloud, COVID obviously walloped us. And we're now sort of back, not back with a bang, but we're back. And last year was stronger than we thought, which you mentioned. This year, fingers crossed, we can recover the momentum. Where do you think we stand now? And what's the kind of the outlook for Irish tourism over, say, a 5-year period?
I think, I came in just after 9/11, and I thought I'd seen it all until COVID. What did we learn during that period? The capacity of the industry to stick together, the capacity of the industry to work through the crisis with one voice and come out with one voice. And you and I served on a number of task forces, and we all brought our opinions to the table, but I think we all managed to find a consensus around the table as to a way forward. We got great support from government. We got great, ears from ministers at the highest level up to Taoiseach as well. And this industry really matters. There's no question about that. I think, all the people that couple of 100,000 that work in the sector should take some comfort in that this industry really does matter to government. So that's a real confident sort of foundation stone for the future. In terms of the prospects for tourism, I'm actually quite optimistic. We did some work with tourism economics. It's not much different to your own. We've seen about a 75% recovery thereabouts. Good prospects in the year ahead. I mean, our forecasts out for the next 10 years indicate that by 2032, in about 10 years' time, numbers could be 36% above where they were in 2019. So that's a very impressive number, but it brings with it its own challenges as well. Sustainability is going to become much more front and center of tourism, and that needs it needs a policy which the minister is committed to put in place. And it's going to need an action plan as well. Because I think the learning that we should take is, looking around some other countries around 2018 and 2019, cities like Barcelona, Amsterdam, Venice, they start to become victims of tourism to some extent. Tourism became disconnected from the local community, which is never a good thing. I mean, tourism is there to serve the community. And I think we remember that. I think it'll go a long way. So it really is about focusing on revenue as opposed to numbers. It's focusing on higher value-added tourists, people who have the capacity to travel off-peak, people who have the capacity to travel, to regions, and people who have the capacity to stay longer and spend more. And the sustainability bit for us falls into 3 brackets, I suppose. The first bit is the economic bit, because we all have to survive. We're all trying to sustain a small business. We've got the social bit. How does tourism give back to communities? And to make sure that the environment is left in at least a better situation than it was when we first found it.
Yeah. And just a word on the Good Friday Agreement, Niall. It's 25 years this year. Obviously, tourism was one of the few sectors chosen back then as an all-island sector. Tourism Ireland was born out of that, and it's been a great success. But that whole sort of island of Ireland promotion overseas, it's worked very well, hasn't it? I mean, it's a much simpler proposition for the consumer to understand. I mean, peace on the ground on the island of Ireland is obviously critical, but just the proposition of a seamless land, no borders, no difference really between north and south is so important for overseas tourists.
Very much so. And, it's amazing when you look back over the last 25 years, how marketing has changed and messaging has changed. If we were doing this video back then when the Good Friday Agreement was signed, I'd be telling you how many brochures we had printed, how many phone calls we got in the contact center. Now it's the 1.7 billion impressions we get on our social media sites. Consumers have instantaneous access to what the place looks like, feels like. Pricing is very transparent, so really has changed radically. So you are really trying to tap into the emotion all the time, though, to get people to think Ireland as opposed to somewhere else. And I think we're well positioned in that sort of technical space. We put a lot of investment in the early stage. 6 million fans on social media. It's a simple formula. If they all have about 200 friends each and we get them to like or share one thing, we really reach a strong audience. And the power now of marketing is in the hands of the consumer in their mobile phones. So it's been fascinating to see the journey. But I think you're right. I mean, we are a small island on the global stage. And when you go abroad to some of the events that we still have in place, like World Travel Market, ITB, you see the industry have come together to work as one team. And that makes an awful lot of sense because there's an awful lot of fragmentation in the world. We see other destinations who don't pull together as well, and they don't get the dividends, and they sometimes wonder why.
Yeah, great. Well, listen, Niall, on behalf of the industry, a huge thank you. I'm not going to say a formal goodbye because you're in situ, I think, until the end of March. So we'll see lots of you at various events over the next couple of months. But thank you so much for everything, and we wish you every success in the future.
Yeah, great to have you interview me again. So we'll be in touch the next while. I'll be posting on social media till the end of March. It's full tilt. There's still another Patrick's Day to go and a lot of business to be drummed up. So we'll be still at it. And thanks a million, Owen, and see you in real life soon.
See you. Thanks so much now.